Hey, fifth grade! You are back to Miss Smith's YouTube channel to read our story for Unit 5, Week 4. This is Changing Views of Earth. Ta-da! All right, if we look at your packet today, it said to review the vocabulary words on page 42. So you could have done these by yourself, completing the sentences. We're going to review the words together today so that we can listen for the words in our story. Right, so our first word was confronting, which means that you're dealing with something, like a problem. Transport means to carry from one place to another. Venture means that you dare to go somewhere. Launched means sent into the air. Composition is what something is made of. And forecast is a prediction about a future event. All right, all of these words, we might hear some of them in our story today to help us understand it more. This story, if you look on the first page, 44, you'll see at the top says expository text. Expository means that it is real. It is nonfiction. It is the same thing as informational text. That means it is a nonfiction text that teaches the reader facts about a topic. So people write these stories because they want to teach you new things, and people read these because they want to learn new things that they didn't know before. So keep that in mind. This is not a story that's trying to entertain you or persuade you to do something. It's just simply to teach you new things. All right, so let's think about that as we get started reading on page 44, Changing Views of Earth. So you can have your book open and follow along with me. We're going to be thinking about how scientific knowledge can change over time. Think about that. 100 years ago, scientists didn't know the things that they know now, and they didn't have the tools and the technology that we have now. So learning new things about science changes over time. It gets more advanced, it gets better. And we're going to read about how our understanding of Earth has changed over time. So scientists have used their tools to teach people like us who are not scientists or not astronauts. They are using what they learned to teach us about Earth. Okay. All right, so we're going to start on page 44. I do love a good expository text because it has real pictures taken from a camera. So that's called a photograph. That's a clue that this is an expository text. It's going to be real because there's real pictures, there's real charts and graphs and diagrams, and they all have words beside them. Those are called captions. That's a text feature that helps describe the picture that you're looking at, and it gives you more information about what you've read. Okay, so let's get started reading. We are on the ground looking around. When you plan an outdoor activity, you probably check the weather forecast. After centuries of scientific developments, we now have the ability to predict storms and droughts. To do this, we looked up at the skies to learn more about life on Earth. So there was one of our vocabulary words, forecast. Like I said, if you know that you want to play basketball or have a picnic outside, you might check the weather forecast. You're going to see what are they guessing the weather will be like in the future on the day that you want to be outside. I love to go swimming, but I know if it is storming that it is not safe for me to be swimming outside that day. Now that science is so much better, we can predict the weather better, so they know if there's going to be a storm like a hurricane or a drought, which means it's not going to rain for lots and lots of days, and the plants might start to die because they get too hot and don't have enough rain. So it's good that science can help us with those things now. But we couldn't just live on Earth and say, oh, I guess it'll be sunny on Saturday. No, you have to use science and you have to use tools, and they couldn't just stand on Earth and figure that out. They had to send tools up into the sky to help them know what the weather would be. And that has changed a lot over time. Long ago, people based their knowledge on what they saw and heard. However, they could not understand simple things confronting them, such as the sun. For centuries, people believed that Earth stayed in one place and the sun moved around it. This was the geocentric model. So a long time ago, people didn't have the technology we have today. They didn't have TVs to look at the weather forecast. They didn't have computers to Google things. They didn't even have tools that went up in the sky to take pictures of Earth. So they had no idea. They thought that the Earth was in the center of the universe, right? And that the sun was going around it. They didn't know really where Earth was in our solar system. And they didn't really know where the sun was. But now, because of tools, we know those things. There was another vocabulary word here. It said they could not understand simple things confronting them, such as the sun. So when the sun came out in the sky and they were having to deal with that, because sometimes the days are very sunny and very hot. And they couldn't understand why some days were like that and then other days were very cloudy and they couldn't see the sun at all. So that was probably very scary because they didn't have the science to understand what was happening in the sky. In the early 1600s, Galileo used a new tool called the telescope to study the night sky. As a result of his heightened vision, he saw the stars, planets, and celestial spheres more clearly. This led Galileo to support a new model of the solar system. A scientist named Copernicus had proposed a heliocentric model. In this model, the sun did not orbit the Earth. Instead, Earth orbited the sun. There was a lot in that paragraph. So 1600s, long time ago, like 400 years ago. Galileo was the first person to make a telescope so that he could see far into the night sky. And it said because of that, he could finally see stars and other planets and celestial spheres. Okay. So celestial, it's a word that means related to the sky. So he could see other things in the sky, right? Like maybe a comet. But then, because he made that, another scientist named Copernicus realized that the Earth is not in the middle of our solar system. It's really the sun. So this is called heliocentric because helio is like the sun and centric means middle. So this means the sun is in the middle of our solar system. Geocentric means that the Earth is in the middle. And we know that's not right. We know the sun is in the middle and all the planets go around the sun. A long time ago, they didn't know that. In the sky, looking down. New technology gave scientists better ways to study theories. Theories are just guesses that people had. Like a long time ago, they guessed that the Earth was the center. They didn't really know. So a theory is just what you think might be true, but you haven't proven it yet. Instruments such as the thermometer and barometer helped them study weather patterns. However, they wanted to study the sky where weather actually happens. So a thermometer, you might even have one if you get sick. Your mom puts it in your mouth, or maybe you have the kind that goes in your ear, and it takes the temperature of your body, and it tells in degrees how hot or cold it is. When I'm checking the weather forecast, I like to know what the temperature is. Is it going to be hot and I can wear short sleeves? Is it going to be cold and I need a coat? So even though they had tools like that, all of their tools were down on Earth. And they realized that they needed to be putting some tools up in the sky, and that might help them know when the weather was going to change and be different. In the mid-1700s, scientists did just that. 1700s is still 300 years ago, so they were getting better. They used hot air balloons to transport tools into the sky. Sometimes scientists themselves went up in the sky in balloons. So there's our word transport, which means to carry from one place to another. They had the hot air balloons that people ride in on a basket, and they would send their tools up into the sky with this balloon, and it would transport their tools. It would carry their tools from Earth up into the sky. However, scientists were studying only the lower layers of Earth's atmosphere. They wanted to go higher. So a balloon can only go so far. It can't really go into space. It can go into the sky, but it can't keep on going. And so they wanted to go even higher. In the early 1900s, so about 100 years ago, aircraft provided a safer way to observe weather. Kites and balloons could rise up to 3 kilometers, but airplanes could give information from 5 kilometers or higher. Yet scientists dreamed of reaching even higher. So finally, once they started having airplanes as an invention, they could transport their tools from Earth up into an airplane, and those could go higher than a hot air balloon or kite. So their tools were getting carried farther up into the sky, but they still wanted to go higher. And you can see in this chart in your book, it says altitude, and that means how high is it. You might hear that word when you're flying in an airplane. It'll say we've reached an altitude of 60 kilometers. They're telling you how high you are in the sky. So here is a little caption that tells us about this. It says, humans learned more about the atmosphere with every new invention. So you can see the hot air balloon, it's the little red picture. It's kind of down at the bottom because it couldn't go very high. And then airplanes were a little bit higher. And so this is the layers of the atmosphere. It's kind of like the layers of the Earth's sky. So you can see they couldn't get very high. So the scientists wanted to be like up here. And they didn't have the right invention yet to carry their tools that high. All right, so let's see what they did on page 47. Out in space, looking back home. Today, powerful rockets are used to put satellites in orbit around Earth. Satellites can study the composition and thinness of the layers in the atmosphere. Thanks to all the scientific knowledge, weather predictions are much more reliable. So now, you guys know, we have rockets that can go into space. So they are able to transport their tools much higher than they used to. And that gives them better information about our sky and about our weather. It says scientists can study the composition and thinness of the layers in the atmosphere. So the atmosphere is like the sky that's kind of between Earth and space. And so they're wanting to see, what is the composition? What is it made of? Does it have oxygen in it? Does it have water? Does it have other chemicals or other things in it that we don't know? So they're trying to see, what is the atmosphere made of? What is its composition? And because we can predict the weather better now, it is more reliable. NetBlue reliable means you can trust it more. Just like a person. Your best friend might be very reliable. That means you can trust him or her. You can always count on them. They're a good friend. They're always there for you. They'll do the right thing to help you. So reliable, you would like to have a forecast that is reliable. You would like to have one that you can trust and believe it is true. Because if I plan a day to go to the beach because the forecast said it's sunny and I get there and it's storming, I would not think that's very reliable. It means I wasn't able to really trust it. But because we have all of these tools that can go higher into the atmosphere, the weather now is more reliable and it's better than it's ever been. NASA sent satellites to collect data about planets and galaxies. They provide accurate data that scientists can analyze. As a result, scientists can develop more reliable models about Earth's systems. So NASA, that word NASA, that is the organization in the United States that controls the rockets and the astronauts and anything that's sent up into space. And that's their whole job, is to study space. And so one of the things they've done is they've sent satellites up into space, and they go around the Earth, even though we can't see them because they're so far away. But they give scientists information about the composition of the atmosphere, so they know what it's made of and what it looks like. And they're also able to learn more about the weather and just things that happen in the sky. So I love this picture, and here is a good caption to learn more. It says, satellites only last for a limited number of years in space. Then they must be replaced. So they don't last forever. So after a few years, it doesn't work as well. And really, the technology is getting better because scientists are learning more. So they want to send up a new satellite that can do more work and send them more good information. So you have to take the old one out, put the new one in. That's what replace means. Today, space missions venture farther and farther from home. So that means they're daring to go farther and farther away from home in space. Even so, nothing compares to seeing Earth the old way with our eyes. Views of Earth from space fascinate nearly everyone. Astronaut Joseph Allen talked about going to the moon. He said, "No one suggested that we should do it to look at the Earth, but that may in fact be the most important reason." So Joseph Allen was an astronaut. So he was someone that worked for NASA, and they sent him up into space in a rocket to study things in space. And he knows that the reason he was sent up was to study what was in space, was to maybe look for satellites or study the weather or study the composition of the atmosphere. But he said, really, even though they're trying to learn about what is in the atmosphere while they're up there, he said, really, maybe the most important part is when you're up in there, you can look down on the Earth and you can see what it really looks like. Now, we can only see this because of pictures. I know when I ride in an airplane, I can see part of the Earth under me, but I can't see the whole thing. So when people go into space or when satellites are sent into space and they can take pictures, they can show us what Earth really looks like, the whole Earth. So it's kind of neat that even though they go up to study space, we learn a lot about what Earth looks like too when they go up. So I really like this story. I hope that you think about this. How did technology affect our knowledge about Earth? How has that changed over time? And yeah, just what have we been able to learn now because technology is so much better? All right, guys, I hope you liked that expository text. Moving on. Now that we've read the story together, tomorrow on day 3, you can read the story to yourself or out loud to someone. And there are 3 questions. Go back in the story and find the answers to those questions by underlining them. So, for example, if you read question 1 and you find that answer here, underline it and write a number 1 beside it so you know where that answer is. All right, on day 4, remember everyone's is a little different. Some of you might have a page where you write 3 things that you learned from the story, and some of you might have an assignment to get onto RazKids and listen to another expository text and answer some questions about it. And some of you might have some other vocabulary words to do. Everybody in 5th grade, each class is a little different, so just check out your directions and see what you do on day 4. Check your parents' email. Remember, if you have a question, to just ask me and I'll help you. And on day 5, you get to go on another fun Friday field trip. After you choose one, choose a different one that you haven't gone to in the past 3 weeks. Remember, this is number 4, so choose a new place. And then write, what did you see? What did you learn? If you don't have this paper, write on your own paper. Your parents have been amazing at taking pictures of all your work and sending it to me. And that way we know that you're working hard on your vocabulary and your reading and writing, and you're getting so much better at English. So I really enjoy seeing some of you at our Zoom meetings. If you haven't got to check in with me yet and say hello or ask for help, just know that I'm here if you need that. And I hope you guys are safe and healthy at home still. And I hope there are some days you can get some exercise. And I know you're working hard at home, but I hope that you're also taking care of your body and having some fun with your family. All right, I am here if you need any help. Dojo message me, email me, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.